Hi everybody, welcome to a video of me talking you through the instructions for essay number 2. So let's go check it out. Find the instructions for essay number 2 first, that'll be your first goal. I'm going to go through assignments. Of course my screen is going to look different than yours, but you want to find that option for essay number 2. I'm calling this a rhetorical analysis because that's what we're doing in this essay. You're analyzing the rhetoric used in 2 different articles. Let's go ahead and open that up. As always, a humorous meme to begin, and then a timetable of the different tasks you need to complete as part of this essay. So there's a proposal, there's a peer editing workshop, another letter to the reader, and then your final draft, which should be about 5 pages. Okay, and then when these things are due. So let's take a look at what this essay is requiring you to do. So far, we've been reading and thinking about the kind of classical rhetorical terminology, the classical appeals, fallacies, rhetorical situation, right? And we applied some of this knowledge in our first essay when we did that argument. It was an argumentative paper where you're arguing that you should be saved, and you were trying to use those classical appeals to make that argument. In this paper, we're going to, instead of forming our own argument, we're going to analyze arguments offered by 2 other authors in 2 essays. So you're going to write an essay comparing and contrasting 2 recent texts, so kind of short editorial type essays or speeches, you can use speeches as well, that use apocalyptic rhetoric, right? That's the kind of focus of our second unit of this course, kind of like a case study in rhetoric. We're looking at apocalyptic rhetoric, so you need to find 2 texts, right? Your first step will be to find 2 texts to use, 2 appropriate texts that use apocalyptic rhetoric to urge action on some topic, right? And you want to choose 2 texts that focus on the same topic, such as, say, climate change, or you could find stuff on geopolitical things or robots taking jobs, right? There's tons of ways that people use apocalyptic rhetoric, but you want to find 2 texts that focus on the same topic. That's going to be more coherent for an argument. And you want these to be current essays, right? Don't go earlier than 2016. Let's keep everything as within the last 4 years, within this kind of political moment that we find ourselves in. If you want to go earlier and do something, say comparing 2 speeches by a person, like one from 10 years ago, one from last week, and you want to look at the different ways that they're approaching the same topic using apocalyptic rhetoric, I'd be open to that, but please do discuss that with me first, okay? Otherwise, just keep it current within the last 4 years. So after you find 2 texts, you're going to want to read them carefully. You're going to want to take them apart, look at the rhetorical situation, right? Remember that soapstone tool we've been using. You're going to want to look at the appeals, ethos, pathos, logos, kairos. You're going to want to look to see if there are any fallacies, any logical holes in the argument, right? You're going to want to do that kind of analysis that we've been doing with text thus far this semester on your own. And remember, a rhetorical analysis is not you engaging with the larger topic. It's not, an argumentative paper about what you think about, say, climate change. Rather, you want to concentrate, as I note here, on the effectiveness of the author's attempt to persuade the reader. Your goal here is to focus on and analyze the rhetoric being used in these 2 essays and compare and contrast them and determine which one you think is more effective, right? That's going to help you focus this essay. So that's what we're practicing in this essay, analyzing the rhetoric that other people use, and also we're practicing a couple mechanical skills, right? Using quoted materials from multiple sources, using correct in-text citation methods, unpacking quotes, right? Not just dropping quotes into our work, and working with complex ideas from multiple sources, right? That's the other thing that we're practicing in this essay. So here's a sample structure that I've laid out for this essay. I have it in like 6 sections, not necessarily a paragraph per section, but just different ways to chunk your work. Of course, you're going to want to start with an introduction, right? This is probably just a paragraph, shouldn't be longer than that. You just and get to the meat of the matter. Don't start with, since the beginning of human history, people have been interested in climate change or something like that, right? Just introduce your 2 articles, paraphrase the author's main points, their thesis statements, how they're using rhetoric, and then your thesis statement, right? So, 5 sentences, that kind of thing, right? One concise paragraph, as I note here. And then you want to move into summarizing. So you should summarize your first essay, what it's about, the main arguments, paraphrasing, put this in your own words. In such a short summary, you should not be quoting directly from this essay. You should be paraphrasing completely. So summarize, and then, I have my third section here, summarize the second essay, right? Just summarize them fairly briefly, a paragraph or two each, and then get into the analysis, right? And you want to focus on specific arguments and specific rhetorical techniques offered or used in each article, right? Be specific. You don't want to really quote directly from both of the essays in this section of your paper, your analysis section. And your analysis section, it should be like the meat of this paper, right? This is where you're getting into specific rhetorical techniques used by each author, what they're trying to achieve with these effects, whether you think they would be successful, under what circumstances they would be successful, maybe for specific readers, that kind of thing, right? So this is where you're getting into this analysis stuff and really thinking about how rhetoric is being used and why. Okay, and then when you finish that section, you should do a bit of comparing, contrasting which one is more effective, right? Which is a more effective use of specific rhetorical techniques. And you don't have to cover everything in these sections, right? You don't have to cover ethos, pathos, and logos. Don't try to stretch yourself too thin. In a paper like this, you're better to go specific, right? If you just want to focus on pathos in the 2 essays and get really in-depth and specific and really unpack the pathos being used, that would be better than trying to cover everything, okay? Specificity is better than being broad and trying to cover more ground. Right, then of course, you want to conclude your essay, a brief summary of your thesis and main points, and then reiterate your argument about which essay is more effective. Okay, so that's a brief structure. You could play around with this. You could summarize your first essay and then do some analysis, and you could summarize your second essay and do some analysis, and then spend some time doing some more analysis, right? You could play around with the structure a bit, but this is a pretty good basic guideline of how to structure this paper. For research, it's just you and these 2 essays, okay? You can't use any other sources. Except for some of the other stuff. If you want to refer to, say, like the Allison McQueen essay that we're looking at about the history of apocalyptic rhetoric in U.S. Politics, that would be okay, something like that. But other than that, it's just you and the essays, and you're comparing and looking at the rhetorical stuff. If you want to, you could refer to like the Rebecca Jones thing if you want to bring in some technical language, okay? But you're not allowed to use things like Wikipedia or GradeSaver.com or any of these junky websites, okay? That will be plagiarism and result in a 0 out of 10, which is not good. So here are some tips I have here. Remember, rhetorical analysis essay. So one of the big skills we're practicing is your ability to read and parse a piece of writing that is exploring a complex issue. So summarizing skills and then analyzing skills, right? And with this one, with the analyzing for this essay, you want to really use those specific terms we've been looking at, pathos, ethos, et cetera, bring those terms into play and show that you know how to engage with those terms and use them to help you analyze a piece of rhetoric. When you're summarizing, try to use phrases such as the author argues, the author claims, right? This will help you stay focused on the author's arguments. When you're analyzing, remember to use juicy quotes from the essays, right? Quote directly. Get into the language that they're using. Don't make broad claims. You need to support things with specific quotes from the essays. Okay, focus on a good thesis statement, and then avoiding cliche, right? Again, if you're specific and use direct quotes, this will help you. Some structural and content things to think about. This paper should only be in the third-person perspective. Okay, this is a objective analysis paper, so you should be using a third-person perspective. Don't talk about the effects that the rhetoric had on you personally. Try to keep it in the third person. Okay, it's fine to write your rough draft in the first person, but when you turn in your final draft, it should be as objective and third person as possible. And remember, it's in MLA format, so double-spaced 1-inch margins, 12-point Times New Roman font. Okay, and that's about it. If you have any questions or concerns, please do email me, call me, Zoom me. One of those things, I'm available to discuss the essay with you. Goodbye.